Hello and welcome to today's video. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to age with energy, clarity, and strength while others slow down too soon? If you're over 60 and noticing small changes, feeling more tired, forgetting things more often, or catching colds that linger longer, you're not alone. These are common signs of aging, but what if they aren't just inevitable? What if something as simple as the fruit on your plate could help you stay vibrant, independent, and mentally sharp well into your 80s, 90s, or even beyond 100? The truth is, nutrition plays a massive role in how we age, and most people underestimate just how powerful certain fruits can be. We're not talking about exotic, hard-to-find superfoods. These are everyday fruits found at your local market that are backed by science to help protect your brain, strengthen your heart, boost your immune system, and support smoother digestion. In this video, I'll reveal 5 of the most powerful fruits that every senior should consider eating daily. One of them is packed with antioxidants that defend against memory loss. Another helps regulate blood sugar while fighting joint inflammation. And the final fruit? It may actually help extend your lifespan. If you're serious about maintaining your health and independence as you age, this is the information you need. So grab a pen, maybe a cup of tea, and stay with me until the end. Because these simple dietary changes could transform your well-being and help you enjoy more active, restful, and fulfilling years ahead. Let's dive in. Your journey to better senior health starts now. Let's start with a small fruit that delivers massive benefits: blueberries. These tiny, deep blueberries are often called brain berries, and for good reason. As we age, memory decline becomes one of the most common and frustrating experiences. You might forget where you left your keys or struggle to recall names and conversations. It's not just about memory, it's about independence, confidence, and quality of life. But studies show that adding blueberries to your daily diet can help slow down mental decline and support sharper thinking. According to research published in journals like the Annals of Neurology, seniors who regularly eat blueberries perform better on memory tests and have a lower risk of age-related cognitive diseases like Alzheimer's. Why? Because blueberries are rich in anthocyanins, a type of antioxidant that fights inflammation and protects brain cells from oxidative stress, 2 major contributors to brain aging. And it doesn't stop there. Blueberries also help improve blood flow to the brain, supporting clearer thinking and better focus. They're even good for the heart and digestion, making them an all-around superfruit for seniors. Let me tell you about Margaret, an 81-year-old woman who had always been sharp, but began noticing more senior moments. Instead of turning to medication right away, her doctor suggested a change in diet. Margaret started eating a bowl of blueberries with her oatmeal every morning. Within a few months, she felt more alert, more energized, and her mood improved too. You can enjoy blueberries fresh, frozen, in smoothies, sprinkled over yogurt, or baked into whole grain muffins. However you choose, consistency is key. One serving a day can make a big difference. If you're looking for a simple, delicious way to support brain health, blueberries are the perfect place to start. And up next, we'll explore a fruit that's creamy, satisfying, and protects the very thing keeping you alive: your heart. Now that we've covered how to protect your mind, let's talk about protecting your heart, because a strong heart is the foundation of a long, vibrant life. And the fruit that's surprisingly powerful in doing just that? Avocados. Yes, that smooth, creamy green fruit is far more than just a trend. Avocados are packed with monounsaturated fats, the good kind that helps lower bad cholesterol and reduce inflammation in your blood vessels. For seniors, that's incredibly important because as we age, our arteries naturally become less flexible and our risk of heart disease goes up. Avocados are also rich in potassium, which helps regulate blood pressure and supports healthy circulation. A potassium-rich diet has been shown to reduce the risk of stroke by up to 24%, according to research cited by the American Heart Association. For many older adults, incorporating more potassium and fiber, 2 things avocados provide in abundance, can lead to noticeable improvements in energy, focus, and overall cardiovascular function. Let's take Michael, for example. At 76, he was managing high blood pressure with medication but still struggled with fatigue and low stamina. On the advice of a nutritionist, he began replacing his morning toast toppings with mashed avocado. Within weeks, his energy levels rose, his blood pressure started trending downward, and even his doctor was impressed with the progress. And don't forget the fiber in avocados. It not only helps digestion, but also stabilizes blood sugar, especially helpful if you're trying to manage diabetes or pre-diabetes. The best part? Avocados are incredibly versatile. Spread them on whole grain toast, dice them into a salad, blend them into a smoothie, or enjoy them with a sprinkle of sea salt and lemon juice. The key is to make them a daily habit. So, if you want a simple way to protect your heart, boost your energy, and keep your blood pressure in check, start with an avocado a day. And next, we'll look at a fruit that's not only beautiful and bold in color, but may help you slow aging and boost circulation. Stay with us. When it comes to aging gracefully, circulation is everything. Good blood flow ensures that oxygen and nutrients reach every cell in your body, from your brain to your toes. And one fruit stands out for its ability to supercharge circulation while fighting inflammation: the mighty pomegranate. This ruby red fruit has been cherished for centuries, not just for its vibrant color and juicy flavor, but for its powerful health benefits. Modern research backs up what ancient cultures believed: pomegranates promote longevity. What makes pomegranates so effective? They're packed with polyphenol, especially a type called punicalagins, which are powerful antioxidants. These compounds help relax blood vessels, improve arterial flexibility, and reduce the oxidative stress that contributes to heart disease, high blood pressure, and even cognitive decline. And it's not just theory. Studies published in Clinical Nutrition show that drinking pomegranate juice daily can improve circulation, reduce arterial plaque buildup, and lower blood pressure in seniors. That's huge, especially if you're trying to stay active, mobile, and independent as you age. Let me share the story of Evelyn, an 80-year-old who struggled with fatigue and aching joints. After learning about the benefits of pomegranates, she started drinking a small glass of pure pomegranate juice every morning. Over the next few months, she felt more energized, her knees didn't ache as much, and even her doctor commented on her improved cardiovascular health. And pomegranates don't stop at circulation. They also contain vitamin C, which strengthens the immune system and help reduce chronic inflammation, one of the silent drivers behind aging, joint pain, and disease. The best way to enjoy pomegranates? Drink the juice, unsweetened. Sprinkle the seeds on your yogurt or salad, or blend them into a smoothie. And if fresh pomegranates aren't in season, look for 100% pomegranate juice without added sugar. So if you're looking for a delicious way to support your heart, fight inflammation, and boost vitality, don't overlook the power of pomegranates. Next, we'll introduce a tropical fruit that's gentle on digestion and loaded with enzymes that help your body absorb more nutrients. You don't want to miss this one. Let's talk about a tropical fruit that often gets overlooked, yet it's a game changer for seniors: the papaya. With its vibrant orange color and naturally sweet flavor, papaya is more than just a tasty treat. It's a nutritional powerhouse that supports digestion and strengthens your immune system, two critical functions as we age. As we get older, our digestive system slows down, and many seniors experience uncomfortable symptoms like bloating, constipation, and poor nutrient absorption. Papaya contains an enzyme called papain, which helps break down proteins and makes digestion smoother and easier. That means fewer stomach issues after meals and better absorption of essential vitamins and minerals, so you get more out of every bite. But digestion is just one part of the story. Papayas are rich in vitamin C, providing over 100% of your daily requirement in just one serving. This gives your immune system a serious boost, helping your body fight off infections, colds, and other illnesses that can be harder to recover from in later years. Let's take the story of Linda, a 76-year-old woman who suffered from digestive discomfort and low energy. After trying numerous remedies, a friend recommended she add a bowl of fresh papaya to her lunch every day. Within weeks, she noticed less bloating, more regular digestion, and a boost in her overall energy. Her immune system also seemed to respond. She didn't catch the usual seasonal bugs that year. What makes papayas even more beneficial is their antioxidant profile. They contain beta-carotene and lycopene, two compounds that help reduce inflammation throughout the body. Since chronic inflammation is linked to arthritis, heart disease, and cognitive decline, regularly eating papaya can help you feel better, move easier, and stay mentally sharp. So how can you enjoy papaya? Slice it fresh for breakfast, add it to a smoothie, or toss it into a fruit salad. It's gentle on the stomach and easy to prepare, ideal for seniors looking for simple, healing foods. Next up, we'll reveal one of the most accessible, budget-friendly fruits that fights inflammation, balances blood sugar, and may just be the key to long-lasting vitality. You won't want to miss it. You've probably heard the saying, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." Well, it turns out this timeless wisdom is backed by science, especially for seniors. Apples are one of the most underrated superfruits for older adults. Why? Because they tackle some of the biggest health concerns we face as we age: inflammation, blood sugar spikes, poor digestion, and declining immune health. Let's start with inflammation. This hidden culprit is behind many age-related issues: joint pain, heart disease, even memory problems. Apples are rich in polyphenol, powerful plant compounds that fight inflammation and oxidative stress at the cellular level. By including apples in your daily diet, you can reduce stiffness, improve mobility, and protect your body from long-term damage. Apples also contain pectin, a special type of fiber that slows digestion and helps regulate blood sugar. This makes them ideal for seniors who may struggle with insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. Unlike sugary snacks that cause sharp energy crashes, apples provide stable, lasting fuel, keeping you alert and energized throughout the day. And let's not forget gut health, a critical part of immunity and overall wellness. The prebiotic fiber in apples feeds good bacteria in your digestive system, supporting better nutrient absorption, sharper brain function, and even improved mood. Take the example of Arthur, an 82-year-old who'd been dealing with daily joint pain and fatigue. Instead of turning to more pills, he simply started eating one apple a day, sliced into oatmeal, dipped in peanut butter, or enjoyed as a midday snack. In just a few weeks, Arthur noticed less joint discomfort, improved digestion, and more consistent energy throughout the day. Apples are incredibly convenient, no prep, no fuss. Whether you're at home or on the go, they're one of the easiest health upgrades you can make. So if you're looking for a natural way to reduce inflammation, support your immune system, and feel stronger every day, don't overlook this everyday hero. Next, we'll wrap everything up and help you take the first step toward turning these delicious fruits into daily habits for lifelong health. Stay tuned. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. When it comes to healthy aging, there's no magic pill, but there are simple, powerful steps you can take, starting with what's on your plate. The 5 fruits we've covered today, blueberries, avocados, pomegranates, papayas, and apples, are more than just delicious. They're nutritional powerhouses that help protect your brain, strengthen your heart, improve digestion, reduce inflammation, and support your immune system. The best part? These aren't rare or expensive superfoods you have to hunt down. They're accessible, affordable, and easy to incorporate into your daily routine. A handful of blueberries with your breakfast, half an avocado on toast, a glass of pomegranate juice in the afternoon, a bowl of ripe papaya after lunch, and of course, the simple, reliable apple as a go-to snack. No drastic changes, just small daily habits that add up to big results over time. Here's the truth: longevity isn't just about living longer. It's about living better, with energy, with independence, with clarity of mind and strength of body. And these fruits can help you do just that, naturally, without relying on supplements or medication. So now, the choice is yours. Will you continue with the same habits that may be holding you back, or take a simple step toward better health and longer life? We hope this video gave you not just information, but inspiration. If even one of these fruits can help improve your energy, your mood, or your mobility, that's a change worth making. Folded hands, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about, because good health is one of the greatest gifts we can pass on. And before you go, which of these fruits are you most excited to add to your daily meals? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your stories and tips. Until next time, stay strong, stay curious, and take good care of yourself.